Hello, we're diving back into another musical for 2024. Welcome to the HolmFront. Hello, boy, it's been a day. I am your host, Tyler. And to my right, as always, is my overly artistic friend, Mitch. Mitch, thank you for joining me.
Hi.
So I know this is YouTube time, but we watched two musicals that have been nominated for the Oscars, and February we've deemed to be Oscar month. We'll just call it that.
May as well.
Why not? I assume that this is going to be a annual thing, but
Probably.
we were blessed this year, and
Yeah, that's the way to put it.
probably will be next year too.
So we don't
I
know where this is in YouTube time, but we watched Emilia Perez first.
We did watch Emilia Perez today.
And got brutally exhausted from that.
I'm tired.
It was not good.
That's
That's the short version. Go watch the full
when's
version.
part 2 of this one coming? Do you know?
Oh, it's at the end of this year.
Oh man,
Like November or whatever.
wow, they're really
Yeah, so they must have shot them close together.
Yeah,
this one's about Wicked, though, obviously from the thumbnail.
We just watched Wicked.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of controversy surrounding this one before it came out, so we weren't really sure
There was?
how it was going to be received. Yeah.
I thought everyone. Oh, yeah, you told me
Yeah.
about it. I forgot.
So-
I was.
I intend to do an episode on this actually at some point because
Okay.
I find it to be a fascinating topic. I've enjoyed more, I'll say, lately this conversation about separating the art from the artist.
Mm.
And this is a prime example.
Oh, yeah.
Because what surrounded this was that the fact that the main two actresses could not stop talking before the movie came out, which is just it was just negative press. Like it was just a bunch of people being like, stop, just stop talking. And it was because they were we'll just call it negative language. I mean, they were very abrasive, very off-putting. Specifically the lead. I think one of the main controversies, and I don't want to delve too far into this, but one of the main controversies was, and this happens a lot. It happened with Sonic. They fans got a hold of some of the art and some of the concept pieces or some of the trailers material, and they changed it to something that was more resemblant to. They more resembled the source material. So one of the things that they did with Wicked, this play has the brim of her hat pretty low, is coming down to about her nose. On the movie poster, it's showing her whole face, and so the play poster is supposed to allude to mystery, right? It's supposed to say something that there's something about this character that you're not aware of, and it'll be revealed through the play.
Yeah.
The movie poster was different, and so somebody went and just adjusted that. That's all they did, and there was no animus or prejudice in it. It was just we're trying to make the movie poster more like the play poster.
Oh, there was. We know what
my
they were
gosh.
thinking when they made this action.
Good Lord. She flipped out and just made it about this whole thing that it wasn't. And so after that, it was, just downhill from there. So I didn't have a lot of high hopes for this film. For one, based on a play. For two, it's a musical. Not a big fan of musicals. I actually didn't have it for three because, Wizard of Oz is a very, very odd bit of material for sure.
Would you call it very Oz material?
Puns. You're fired. Get off the show. So we.
I didn't start it. The movie did.
True. I think I reached out to you recently, and I was like, "Hey, we were kind of going over some of the things we wanted to do for the show, and one of the things I wanted to do was something that went over the pieces of Oz that have come out over the years."
Yeah.
I had never seen the original Wizard of Oz until this year, actually.
Neither had
At least
I.
not all the way through. And then I knew there was a couple other films that I had also not seen, but I knew about. So I was like, why don't we just do a whole thing on it? But considering Wicked is up for the Oscars, which it how many is it has? It has
And
best. Whoa,
yeah,
10,
well, it
jeez.
has Best Picture and
Costuming probably.
costuming,
Yep.
yeah, production design, and a lot of like below the line stuff. The two lead actresses are up. Yeah, so usually so our plan was we've been in the background watching the original Oz films, and we want to do an episode that talks about all of them,
Right.
kind of unpacking like the whole world of Oz. Maybe we'll throw in the book too. I don't know how long it is.
Well, I mean, there's multiple books, but I mean,
Oh
at least the
yeah,
original.
that's fair. I was just thinking the original, but yeah, there's
Yeah.
others. But since we're kind of unpacking the whole Oscar Best Picture nominees, we figured we would do one that kind of covers this movie. So you get special treatment this time, movie, which
Didn't deserve. I'm sorry, foreshadowing.
not particularly. I mean, but you said this movie you liked better than you thought you would.
It surpassed my expectations. Yes, that does not
Okay.
mean that I particularly enjoyed the movie.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. So I mean, let's start as we always do. What did we like? What'd you like? I've been talking a whole lot, so
Yeah, well, I mean, the costumes were great, as you said.
they were.
And the movie is it's very much a big spectacle kind of movie. So it was, ideal to see it in the theater, which we didn't do because we needed bathroom breaks. It's super long. No, we just watched it afterwards because we were in a rush. Our plans for reviewing this kind of changed as time went on, and we realized, oh yeah, we do want to cover the Oscar films.
Well, I actually didn't realize until just now when we finished the movie that it's slotted for part 2. I didn't realize this was part 1. I thought it was just Wicked.
Oh, okay.
So we made a good point afterwards that why don't we just wait till part 2 comes out
to do all the
Oz
stuff.
videos.
Yeah,
so.
then we'll just do one on Oz.
Right.
And if that's up for Best Picture, there'll be like a little comment, and then we'll move on.
See how it
I'm
goes.
not gonna do a whole episode
it's not
on
going to
it.
be its own video for sure.
Unless it's really good, because there were a lot of things that they established in this. They did very, very little with it, but it's like you could do more with it.
Right.
I've seen that happen before. So yeah, but it's a big spectacle movie. Definitely like a big, like you want to see it in the theater. You want to get that full experience. You have to like musicals, though. If you don't like musicals,
I mean, it'd probably help if you liked the play, which neither of us has seen. But yeah, I mean, it's all the same songs, same plot line. So I mean, if you like the play, you'll probably like this movie.
yeah.
I know it's not necessarily the same crowd, but if you are someone who enjoys theater, enjoys this play particularly, then it probably stand out to you.
Yeah, I think if you enjoy the play, you'd really like this.
So
I don't see why you wouldn't. It's because the slowness is just taking its time to like really enjoy each moment. So if you're into this kind of movie, then you're into it and you're gonna have a good time.
right.
If you're not and you're just kind of more of a casual, like, oh, what's this Wicked movie?
Probably won't like it.
Yeah, it's probably gonna rub you the wrong way. I would think. But yeah, I mean, I don't know that it really surpassed or was lower than my expectations. I think it was about right what I expected it to be.
That's fair.
I think because the reception was so good, I started to wonder if maybe the themes were gonna be really rich. I was like, maybe they really are onto something here. And and I just gotta kind of see it for myself to find out, because everyone was like, man, that was a good one. And I was like, really interesting. And then I saw it and was like, it was all right. Like,
yeah, not that great. I think because it was just, it met expectations for someone who has seen the play and likes it and likes the songs.
Yeah.
Kind of just hit those marks. It just kind of scratched the itch. It didn't really try anything new.
Yeah, that's a good point, because there's lots of like cool set pieces. Like they have this cool ballroom scene where it's like they're like under this like ice. They're in an ice cavern or something, and like you can see like fish swimming in like the water above like the ice shield or whatever. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then they have like the big ending where she's like flying on her broom and singing, and there's like the clouds are like different colors, and it's just like there's just like a lot. There's like the balloon sequence, the way they do Oz the Great and Powerful is really cool.
Oh yeah.
So there's like highlights, as in it's not a movie that had zero effort put in. There's clearly a lot of work put into like the production design and like the orchestration for the musicals. Like this is like musical fans I think would really love this movie because they just go all in and they've got like a huge cast of people. They're all moving around and there's all kinds of choreography and costumes and
Choreography was
singing
great, I will say.
and the
sure.
singing was I mean everybody felt like it felt to me like they could sing. Which
may have been a contrast to the earlier film that we watched today.
You didn't have to say that, but
sorry,
I did notice that they could sing. Anyways, yeah.
Well, then you got Goldblum, which who doesn't like Jeff Goldblum? Like
he is a great choice for the character because he's, for those who know the story, he's a magician. He's not really a wizard,
right?
And he just pretends he's a wizard, and so he's kind of like a con artist, and then he's kind of like, oh well. Look how that worked out. Like, yeah.
I will say, I kind of wish that they paid homage. I mean, I understand that this is a separate project. So Wicked, from what I understand, is written by a guy for stage plays based on the material of Wizard of Oz, but is not written by the author of Wizard of Oz, not the original one. So
I think so. I don't know if he wrote a book or if he wrote a stage play specifically, but there's like a stage play definitely.
I think it's stage. I mean, we'll have to look that up, but this is obviously just kind of references Oz, whether it's licensed or not. I mean, obviously there's enough there to like connect it without jumping into copyright, but I don't know what the whole story behind it is. However, I mean, there's a series of films that came before this, and it would have been funny if they just paid some kind of homage to a couple of them, specifically the Great and Powerful one. Because we're big fans of that one. That was great. That was
spoilers for the future. That one was awesome.
We love Sam Raimi, so it was funny to watch James Franco as the wizard. I was saying like it would have been hilarious if he got a cameo in this film as the Wizard of Oz, and he shows up because that one Raimi is very he's very anti-musical. So every time someone started to sing, Franco came in and was like, no, we don't need to do that.
Yeah.
We don't need to. So it would have been just kind of a cheeky, like a nod back to the previous films, but also like, hey, we're jumping back into the musical side of things here. But I mean, for what it was, Jeff Goldblum. I mean, who doesn't like Jeff? He's like he just brings so much charm to the film.
Yeah,
the way he talks and stuff is it's hilarious. But yeah, I mean, they loved the style of. Because typically Oz has that big, the smoke and then the projection on there, and that's like the very classic. But they kind of went their own direction with this one, and it was cool. It was neat. It was good looking. Like you said, the set design was all great. CGI all seemed pretty good. Like the set production design in general flowed. It didn't feel like anything kind of stood out. Didn't feel like anything was out of place. It was very fantastical and almost like Dr. Seuss-ish. In its whimsy. So I mean that was all good too.
Yeah. And it does kind of explain not that it really needs to, but it kind of shows like Alphabet using
Alphabet.
Alphabet. I thought it was Alphabet.
Whatever.
Alphabet.
It's not Alphabet. I know that.
Did I say Alphabet?
It sounded like it. You might not have. I don't know.
I mean, it's pretty much whatever. When Alphabet uses her,
there we go.
When she uses her powers, like there's kind of like a little bit of a narrative to explain her using the magic to like put people to sleep with the flowers, and then there's like the one where she learns like how she's the one to she essentially curses the monkeys and gives them wings, and that's how they can fly. That's pretty much what it was.
Kind of, yeah.
And I kind of liked how, I mean, because when she does it, this is like, I think we'll talk about this probably more later on. We'll probably do dislikes first, but just as like a hint, it's actually the monkey goes through a lot of pain. They're like ah, and then have to grow these wings.
Right.
And she's like kind of shocked that that's what it does. And I liked that. It gave it some grit, and it was sort of like, hey, magic is dangerous and spooky. So, which wasn't something the film had addressed up until that point. It was just kind of like, oh, you have powers. And then when it did that, it was like, there's an ugly side to magic. And obviously, like, beauty and ugly things is important in this movie. But I don't want to get too far into that because I feel like we should sort of try to walk through the movie if we can. So what did you not like about this movie? What did you dislike?
Oh man, I know I'm gonna get some hate for this. Okay, so I understand that this is a stage play, and I understand that this is written as a musical. However, I and I will say I thought going into this, and I didn't double check before we started it. I thought this movie was gonna be 3.5 hours long. It's 2.5.
It felt like 6.
But man, it felt long. The songs themselves didn't feel like they justified their existence well enough for me. They didn't progress the plot at each point, and so sometimes it felt like you just pause the movie. We're gonna sing real quick, and it did it a lot. And I was just like, my gosh, please, please, no more singing. And I know that's what most people like about this movie. So, unpopular opinion, I didn't like it. Wasn't a fan.
Well, I didn't like it either. I mean, it would basically do this thing where it would have, 5 minutes of a song, and then it would spend like 2 minutes doing a scene that was basically just the song all over again. It covered the same points.
It was accomplishing the same thing that the song should have done.
Yeah, and
because it was almost like not confident enough to allow you to have gotten the point with the song.
Yeah, and so then you come away from the net of the 7 minutes and go, we could have done all that with 1.5.
Right.
And so it was just, it felt, and the scenes without the music were much more efficient at getting it done, and they covered more material.
Right.
And the songs were like this kind of like weak effort to sort of convey it. But in a lot of cases, I was like, wait a minute, what are we saying here? That's like, is there anything more than what we've already seen? Because depending on the order too, because it would change it up all the time. So sometimes it would be you would get the scene first, and then you would get the song. And then other times you would get the song, and then you'd get the scene. And this also led to situations where you would get like, a scene for 2 minutes, and then you get a 5-minute song followed by another 5-minute song. And in one case, they did another 5-minute song after that. And I was like, dude, this has been 15 minutes of music. I need a break. I need a breather. And yeah, so sometimes like it just the lack of substance was really grating after a while, and it felt like the movie was just so sluggishly going forward.
It made it feel so much longer than it should have. Like I said, I understand these are songs from the play, and people that like the play are expecting those songs to be in there, but just looking at it from an objective standpoint, from someone who doesn't understand all that, like who hasn't seen the play and all that, it wasn't enough. Wasn't enough substance to justify that. And so it just, like you said, it felt grating after a while. I was like, dude, okay. It's not that I didn't like this. Like, the songs are decent enough. I mean, and like we said, the choreography was good, and there was talent. They actually could sing. But yeah, otherwise it was like,
yeah.
What about you? What else? I mean, we'll jump back and forth with these points.
Yeah, I mean, there was. I mean, you got to use your songs. Like, this point really cannot be overstated. Like, because the songs are supposed to
progress the narrative.
They're supposed to progress the narrative or tell us something about the characters. And I just felt like they really didn't do that. There's like one song early on with Alphabet. I'm just calling her that. I don't care. And I don't know, she just came across as kind of self-absorbed and sort of full of herself, and she's like, I'm just so great.
When she runs out of the wheat field and she's like, I'm here to make the wizard notice me. It's like, all right.
Yeah, and it was just kind of like, that was a weird way to get me to be sympathetic for the character, and a very ineffective way at that. I already felt for the character because of the scenes without the music. Those scenes worked much better, like when she defends her sister because she's getting picked on. And then there's like a scene where, she's like sympathetic to like one of the teachers who's a goat, and, people are like making fun of him because he's an animal. I mean, it's Oz. It's Land of Oz. It's freaking weird. So, they have a goat teacher, and, she's nice to him, and everybody else is mean to him. So, like, I felt for the character in those moments. So when she has like this whole song dedicated to her, and then it was doing the reverse, it was like, now it's a contradiction, because she came across as like really like self-absorbed then. So I was like, I don't know really what to do with that. And that's like, I don't know. So I guess like the justification isn't there. I guess that is the best way to say it. But oh yeah, the other thing is like there's just not enough substance throughout the whole movie was the other problem.
There was very few plot points that could have been condensed pretty easily, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It really didn't cover much ground with the substance that it was trying to introduce. And specifically, it didn't seem to hit on the points that I thought could have been a lot stronger.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I know I'm committing sacrilege here, considering people that like the play, but if I'm just I'm observing what I got here, is like you weren't drawing me in enough to. I wasn't really invested in anybody. Was one of the big things.
Mm-hmm.
One of the people that I compared. I don't know why I had such a problem with that word. I was comparing Alphabet to Alita Battle Angel. If you've seen that movie, I'm not a huge fan of it, but I really liked the character of Alita. So one of the first things that they do, because they find her, I don't want to say body because she's an android, but they find her laying on a basically a trash heap, and the main character, or the doctor, I guess, brings her in, gives her a body, and she wakes up. And one of the first things that happens is that she stands up, falls over, and gets right back up. And it was a very subtle reference to her character.
Mm-hmm.
It was the fact that no matter what gets her down, she's going to get right back up. And she didn't complain. She wasn't discouraged. She just got back up. And they kind of do something similar with Alphabet. It's not quite like so symbolic, but it's kind of this like overly sympathetic character. I guess Harry Potter's are probably a better reference there. Is that everything is against her, right?
Yeah.
She's born unwanted by it's not her father. That's the problem. Because her mom is like cheating on her husband, and then so she has this kid out of her marriage. But she comes out green, and I'm assuming it's because of the way she was conceived. I don't really know. It doesn't explain that, but all you know is that she's green. So it's trying to tackle like a couple different issues at the same time. But her father doesn't want her.
Yeah.
Father used lightly there. And then her sister is crippled, and her sister tends to treat her pretty badly too. But she just keeps treating everybody nicely. So it's like trying to accomplish the same thing, but then she sings that song, and it has kind of this similar effect of like that John Carter reference that I made, is that everything's kind of just handed to her. She doesn't fight for anything. So she goes to the school, and she accidentally uses magic, and the headmistress sees it. She's like, "You've got to stay here." So she's like not even trying to apply or get into the school, but the headmistress drags her in. And then when she gets in, then she sings this song of like, "Oh, the Wizard of Oz needs to see me." It's like you weren't trying to like achieve this at all. It just kind of fell in your lap, and then all of a sudden you just got this weird entitlement attitude. So that was a little bit off-putting, because then she goes back to the whole like.
But it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
because then she goes
forth.
back, and then it's almost like you continue after that point, and then you're sympathetic to her again,
Right?
Almost as if that song didn't happen, and you just kind of ignore it. But it's not even the only song that does that. There's other songs too where you're just kind of like, does this really add anything? Like the one where, the two are finally Ariana Grande and or Glenda or whatever.
Glenda and Alphabet.
Mm-hmm. They're like trying to they're actually starting to connect and be friends, and so they have this song that they sing, or actually no, so they have a scene where they talk and share some stuff, and it's like them bonding. Then they go into a song where they're singing about them bonding, and she's like, "I'm going to make you popular." Then that ends, and then they have another conversation, and then that ends, and then Glenda has a solo song afterwards, going through the same things that we just went over. It was just like, I got it.
Yeah.
She's not popular because she's green. It's not hard.
Well, the interesting thing about
that
is that the solo song she sings, you're like, you're going to be popular, but not as popular as me. And I was like, are you guys both just super self-absorbed? Like, which one am I supposed to root for here? Because I dislike both of these a lot. And they don't make Ariana Grande's character so hateable. I mean, she kind of leans that way every once in a while, but then you're like, all right, she's got some redeeming qualities, I suppose. But same thing for Alphabet. Is like, yeah, she has some sympathetic qualities, I suppose, but also there's not a lot here that I sympathize with in general. Like as a whole, Not a big fan.
You would think that a character who's like has enough sympathy going for them, but also isn't perfect would be a good mixture. Why is it not working in this movie?
I think she swings back and forth too often. It seems like she gets too dedicated to one side or the other.
Well, you mean both characters?
Well, yeah, sure. I was
Okay.
going more with Alphabet, but yes.
Okay.
Glenda Glenda seems like an airhead that just kind of gets blown whatever way she wants.
Yeah.
The one scene that kind of stands out is where she dances with Alphabet
Mhm.
at the gala, or whatever that is.
That was a good scene. I really
That
liked
was
that
a good scene
scene
because it actually felt like it had a purpose and it was moving towards that pretty effectively.
Mm-hmm.
It was way too long, but it did achieve something. So I was like, all right, I'll take the good with the bad, I suppose.
Yeah, I want to talk about that scene a little bit, actually.
Sure.
So what happens is in the story, and this is fairly early on, Glenda she has this boy. He's like a munchkin, and he's super interested in her, and she has no interest in him because he looks like a goofball. And so she's trying to get him off her back, and she kind of manipulates him to go and talk to Alphabet's sister, who's like, a cripple in a wheelchair, and she's like, you should invite her to the ball. And he's like, oh, okay, I'll do that for you or whatever. Which is kind of like a dirty, underhanded thing to do, because she's really just trying to get him off her back.
Right.
And it kind of works out because afterwards, when he takes her to the ball, you can see he's uncomfortable and he doesn't actually want to be with her. But then when he notices that Glenda's totally into this other guy who's like super hot, at some point he's like, you know what, screw it. I'm just going to be totally into you. And then he just kind of commits and then he actually dances with her, which is really cool because she's
cute.
like,
That's
it was like, oh, that's so sweet that he's going to pull her out onto the dance floor and try to like, just like be with her, pull her into the space. So I liked that moment. I thought that was really tender. But anyways, the reason that scene's important is because Glenda does something for like her own personal benefit. That's why she does that whole thing, and it's very dangerous territory. There could have been some serious emotional damage because of that. And she knows that, she's not a moron because she understands like the social dynamics. She understands that very well. She doesn't know magic for crap, but she knows that. So that definitely doesn't speak very well of her. But then Alphabet figures out about that, and she's like, "Whoa, this is probably gonna go south." And what she decides to do is talk to the headmistress and request that a wand be given to Glenda and for her to come into their private magic learning sessions. And she's going to leave unless they do that, which is a pretty strong stance to take. So this is a woman she,
doesn't get along with.
With.
This is before their redemption. This is before they actually connect and become best friends like the stepbrothers.
Yeah. So she like the stepbrother. Yeah.
Did we just become best friends? Yep.
Yeah. So she does that gesture. And I guess it's supposed to be like, will you fight a bully by being nice to them kind of thing?
Mm.
And I guess that's all right, but it just didn't really feel like it.
It wasn't earned.
Yeah, because I didn't really see how Alphabet came to that conclusion. I didn't get.
Yeah, she was threatening to leave the school. It was like,
and I was like, this is the best thing that's ever happened to you.
Yeah, why are you fighting for this person who didn't even do something out of the goodness of her heart? It was just to get some boy off her back. And someone benefited from it for sure, but it wasn't because of what she did. It was in spite of what she did, really.
Yeah, maybe she was just trying to get some leverage over her. Maybe it was more ill intent than that.
Maybe there's more in the second film, but
yeah, who knows?
Yeah.
But anyways, it did have a good payoff at the very least, which is that Glenda gets the wand and then the explanation. And it's a really funny scene, actually.
It is.
Because the headmistress,
she's ruthless.
Michelle Yeoh, goes and gives her the wand.
Like, I'm so glad you have faith in me. I have no faith in you at all. It was great because there's 4 or 5 lines like that.
Yeah,
like I didn't want you to. Like, I don't think that you're gonna succeed at all. I don't want you under my tutelage. But
she's like, you're a loser and a failure, and I don't want to give you this. I just have to.
But
so take it and get out of my face.
Yep.
It's like
Alphabet wanted this, and she threatened to quit. So I'm giving you a wand. So you better prove yourself, even though you probably won't. It's like, dang.
Sheesh.
But Glenda's just like, oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was funny. but then that really seems to leave an impact on Glenda, and because everybody sort of follows her whims, right? And so she's like, "Oh, you're green," and so she's mean to this woman because she's green. And then everyone's like, "Oh yeah, she's green. We'll just go with what you're saying, Glenda." But then Alphabet shows up to the dance, and everybody's like, "Oh, we got to stare at the green person."
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of forced and contrived, but just go with it. And then the Alphabet goes into this dance, and it's kind of a weird dance, and people are like making fun of it. But then Glenda is like holding the wand that she was given by her, and it's like, I can't be mean to this person now. I mean, they kind of stuck up for me, and that is good. Like, I wish it was stronger getting to that point.
Yeah.
Because she does a total 180. But the 180 is cool because she sets the wand aside and then goes into the dance with her. And then because Glenda's doing it, now it's a cool thing to do. And so everybody gets into the dance. And the music was actually really good there. I think that was actually just the
emotional tone
poser.
was good too, because that's when Alphabet, I don't know, it kind of breaks through her wall.
Yeah.
Because there's a conversation that Glenda has with her boyfriend, the prince, where essentially he's like, "Look at her, man. She doesn't care about anybody." And he's kind of, I don't know, he's also good intended. He has good intentions.
Yeah.
And Glenda's like, "No, that's not the point. She actually does care. She just has to put on this face." So when she goes out there and breaks down the wall, you can see that Alphabet cares. And so she's crying while they're doing the dance. And so, like, that was also a pretty good tender moment.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where they connect before they have, subsequent popular song and such. But
that line is actually really important too, because it's showing that Glenda is starting to understand.
Yeah, she has some
Alphabet's
kind of
experience.
perception of reality.
Yeah, and so she's developing some empathy,
Sure.
and she's willing to and she makes this gesture to step out and be like, "All right, well, if they're gonna make fun of you for this dance, they're gonna have to make fun of me too."
Sure.
And so she takes that step forward, but she's not able to do it later. And this is a scene I don't think I quite got. I don't think I understood it, because after this they kind of bond a little bit, and then they go to class, and and when they're in class, the goat professor is there, and then like the doors get broken down, and the guards are like, "We're getting rid of animals," and they just like strangle him out the.
It's rough too. They like grab him by the horns, and he's like fighting it. And
he's like, "Please, just
they're not gonna tell you the truth."
Yeah, and everyone's like,
but Alphabet gets up to like defend it, and then she's like, "Are we all just gonna sit around and do nothing about this?" And then the Umbridge wannabe says, "No, you need to go sit down." And so she goes and sits down, and no one else does anything. It's like, I thought we all just had this bonding moment where we'd all be ready to be like, "Hey, get that guy back in here. He deserves a spot."
Yeah, but
nobody does.
But that was an exercise in like human complacency. So I thought that was okay. It's the next part where it gets a little dicey, because they bring in an animal in a cage. It's like a lion. It's probably the Cowardly Lion, to be honest.
No.
But they bring him in a cage, and he's doing this lecture on like, this is his history lecture, by the way, and he's like, "We think it's best if animals just live their whole lives in cages."
Yeah, the smaller the cage, the quieter their voice, or they won't be able to formulate a voice. It's like, my gosh.
Yeah, it's like, this got dark out of nowhere. I don't see Munchkins going along with this from what I know of Wizard of Oz. This is a different universe, clearly. Anyways, he does that whole spiel. He's a monster. That's the idea. And then Alphabet takes her flowers, and she's like, "Oh, we got to do something." And she slams them on the ground.
She brought the flowers for the goat teacher.
Yeah.
And they're both of their favorite kinds, and they're poppies. And for those of you that have seen the previous Oz films, there's a poppy field outside of the Emerald City, and the poppies put people to sleep.
Yeah.
That's, apparently this is like homage there. But she turns them on, essentially, and they put everyone to sleep, except for Glenda's boyfriends.
The prince guy. And then what happens is she enlists the prince guy to help her rescue the lion, and so they go and they rescue him. The thing that I didn't like about that is, why didn't she, because she explains later, he asked, like, "Why did you make it so that I wouldn't fall asleep?" And then she says something to the effect of, like, "I knew I could trust you, or I knew you would, like, work with me on this. Like, you're not so far gone as everybody else, basically."
Yeah. Why not Glenda?
why not Glenda? And I feel like, and I understand Glenda
It's a
is
pretty
like,
scummy move.
I get it. She's not the greatest person in the world, clearly, but like she stuck up for you. She was willing to kind of like after you stuck up for her,
Right.
like it's clear that you broke down Glenda's walls, which she does have, as much as she was breaking down yours. So it just seemed like a weird moment where I was like, I feel like some trust was earned here.
Yep.
And like the three of you were like the Harry Potter crew. I missed something.
Yep. Yeah, either Glenda and the boyfriend or just Glenda, and then Glenda can vie for the boyfriend, and then you develop the love triangle from there.
Mm-hmm.
It just didn't seem organic. Like I was scratching my head over that one too. I was like, why him? This doesn't make any sense. Like, what is it about? Because you have this scene where he's introduced. He almost runs Alphabet over with his horse, and it's an accident. It's totally an accident. Played for an accident. He even apologized. He doesn't like treat her any weirdly, but she acts like he's treating her weirdly. And then she starts going through her stupid spiel. I ain't eat any grass. And it's like, why are you treating this guy like crap? He's actually being nice and genuine. And then she just storms off. And then he goes back to talking to his horse. Like, that was weird. But so I think they're trying to rely on that scene to gain this trust. Like that's, because he was actually genuine. But she is so resistant to it. Like you don't remember that being the case. Not only that though, but also the scene where they save the lion is directly after her and Glenda have this bonding moment. So it's like, why would you show me the bonding moment of Glenda before you do this? Because now it just seems like you're snubbing that.
Yeah.
And especially if she knows that she's dating the guy, seems kind of a scummy thing to do. Like, why are you choosing her boyfriend to do this with? It just, I don't know, it felt very off. Like, it totally inorganic. It didn't feel like it fit. Maybe it's more fleshed out in the play. I have no idea, but it didn't work out here.
I did get a different read on that particular scene, though. Like, when he almost runs her over with his horse, the horse is talking through that whole sequence. And he's totally cash with that. So he's not one of those evil hater of animals who talk. I don't know why anybody would hate that, especially in a world of Oz. It's kind of ridiculous, but whatever. Yeah, I get it. It's supposed to be like a symbol, but anyways.
Animals should be seen, not heard, duh.
Anyways, so like, when she goes through the spiel, because she always tells people, she's like, no, I didn't eat grass when I was growing up, and
no, I'm not seasick.
I'm not seasick. Yeah. She runs through the spiel because these are the stupid things people will say to her because she has this green skin. So when she starts to go through it with him, he doesn't get that she's providing explanation because he doesn't have those questions. He doesn't care. So she's like, I'm not seasick, and he's like, well, I'm not either. And then she's like,
I didn't eat grass.
He's like,
I did.
He's like, when I was a kid, I ate grass.
Yeah, so he actually comes across as kind of charming.
Yeah, and it seems like he's kind of a genuine guy, and it seemed to me like they were showing that he's not prejudiced. That's the whole point of this scene. That's why he has a talking horse, and that's why he doesn't play into this the gimmick that she's doing, whereas everybody else does. He was just like, I don't understand what you're doing. It's almost like it was unfathomable to him. He didn't even notice that she had green skin, basically. I mean, he notices, but it's like in this brief moment.
It's not important to him.
Yeah, it's not important to him. It does, and then he just puts it past him, and then it's gone forever. But then, then all this other stuff plays out, and I'm like, okay, so, and she catches on, which I like. She sort of is like, huh, okay, that's interesting. I didn't think she was mad or spiteful. I think she was just taken off guard that someone was like, just took her for a person, that she was like, oh, I don't even know what to do with that, and then just walked off because she didn't know how to like handle it in a nice way. I
understand the defensive nature. It just seemed like she was so aggressive that she just treated him like everybody else. I mean, I understand the dichotomy there is that now she's the prejudiced one by, assuming that he's prejudiced.
There's that, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was so aggressive, and then she leaves. But then all this other stuff happens, and then she chooses him. It didn't seem like there was anything else for him to prove himself to be a part of that moment. And so it really was just kind of stealing thunder away from Glenda, because it was like, why didn't you just choose Glenda at this point? She's the one that just earned your trust. He hasn't done anything since the moment you guys met each other on the horse, except date Glenda. And so now it just feels like, I don't know, it was really out of place. It should have happened earlier, or he should have had more of a redeeming moment to repair the walls there.
Or better yet, don't follow it up with some 7-minute song that told us basically nothing about anyone. Because that's what it does. All it does is accomplishes that Glenda and this guy are like gonna get together because they're both hot, I guess is the explanation. And then
What else do you need?
he like goes on this huge tirade about how school is pointless and lame and how he's been kicked out of other schools because it's just
Yeah, he's
meaningless.
basically just saying live life careless, live life carefree.
Yeah.
It borders on nihilistic, but not quite.
Yeah, and it's sort of like, why are you here, man? Like, if you don't believe in this
To
stuff, what's
date
the
Glenda,
point?
duh.
Well, but he didn't even know about her.
Well,
It's
now
only
he
when he
does,
sees
so-
how.
Where
Yeah,
else
so-
did he go?
So that was a bit. Yeah, again,
It's
it's
just
like you're just.
contrived.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
it's
all.
like, it's just not, you're not using the time like effectively. Like, I need to know a little bit more about this guy, and
Which was the point that we've had just to kind of overall. The movie just seems like it doesn't flesh anyone else out enough to understand anyone's stance. It doesn't feel like
Mhm.
anyone has clear motivations. You get that Alphabet cares about the animal situation, but aside from that, you don't really know what she cares about. She just kind of feels like everyone is against her because she's green. That's all you get from her.
Mhm.
There's no like aspiration or goal. Like she's told that the wizard wants to meet her now, and then that becomes like her aspiration. It's like, okay, but is that your aspiration?
Well, that was hers established in her opening song, but it wasn't worded that way, so I could see where you got confused. Because the
Fair.
way she worded it was that I'm going to be so great, and the wizard will notice that.
Right.
Not that like
The
I wish
self-aggrandizing.
I could see the wizard so I could make a wish and he could make that come true. Because that's kind of like
Sure. Yeah.
yeah.
She just kind of wraps herself in her defenses so often that it's hard to figure out what her actual motivation is. Because that's what it seems like. Is like because that's the interaction that she has with Glenda at the beginning. Is well, Glenda's like, oh, "I'm so sorry that you have this situation. I intend to study sorcery so I can get rid of your problem." And she's like doing it sincerely, but obviously it's really harsh to say.
Yeah,
I'll
it's
get rid of your
terrible.
green skin. Like,
Yeah.
oh, thanks. Appreciates you noticing and
Yeah, it's
wanting
like-
to fix me.
You think she hasn't like
Right.
thought about this every day of her life? What would it be like to not have green skin?
Right.
You're the only one on the planet who has this.
But it also doesn't seem like that's something that she wants. You can't really tell. Like she doesn't lean one way or the other of like, I do want
Well-
to not be green. Because she kind of leans that way when she gets to the wizard, but then she's like, no, I've all of a sudden taken the stance of not wanting the animals to stop talking.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, I guess there's a growth there. But outside of that, it's like, this seems to be a cause, but where's this stem from? Like, who are you to want this cause? It just seems like she may be sticking up for the little man to some extent and might be stemming from the fact that she's constantly oppressed. But again, there didn't seem to be enough character there for me throughout the movie. It seemed to like sacrifice a lot of these developing moments. It was like this. So does she love the prince or does she not? Does she actually have like a great bond with Glinda or not? Because Glinda seems kind of aloof and I don't know. There wasn't a whole lot of like substance, and it seemed to be really drowned out by these constant songs that they kept doing. And maybe that's just my misunderstanding of the film. I don't know, but I really felt like I didn't know the characters very well at the end, as opposed to the beginning. Like it was just a little bit better, but not enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I felt like I got Alphabet a little bit better. I mean, she's a bit of a like, I mean, because she does stick up for the talking animals that are
Right.
being persecuted. And I guess she's doing that because, she herself knows what it feels like to be an outsider. But then it seemed like a commentary, not so much on her character, but just on like your situation.
Yeah.
Which I guess is what people are really highlighting with this movie is that like, if you come from a situation where you're not persecuted, then you just have no concept of what persecution even looks like. And it'll just like totally bounce off of you. But if you experience it, then you'll be
More sympathetic.
Yeah, you'll be more sympathetic to
Yeah.
it, and then you'll notice, and then it will be on you to stand up for that. And I guess I sort of like, I don't know, like the nurture argument is what it's trying to make. It seems like it's just what your nurture is everything, and your nature means nothing. And I just don't really agree with that. I think there are some things about you that are just kind of unchangeable. It's just that's in your nature. That's just how you are, and you can only fight so much of that. But I also think there's things that influence you, and I feel like, at least from what I've more commonly accepted, is that like, yeah, that seems to be the consensus. It's really hard to prove beyond belief or beyond any doubt that you can totally manipulate someone. I mean, there have been experiments, many of which were not ethically
great.
done at all. But like, some people have come to the conclusion like, well, I could just make someone be whatever I want them to be. And that's gone disastrously wrong.
Sure.
But it also seems like they become a very specific kind of person because of all that influence. And they probably would have been very differently had they not been exposed to this. It's just that it wasn't control. Like, you can't control what the outcome is going to be.
Right.
So like, yeah, like if you beat somebody up for 10 years every day, they're going to have a very specific kind of feeling about you and about the world because of that. Like, duh, so I don't know. It was interesting to see that nature thing, or the nurture kind of the situation. And I guess this is kind of one of the highlights that we did pick up on, which was a point it makes near the end of the film. This is slight spoilers. Whatever, everybody saw it pretty much. But when they go see Jeff Goldblum, the wizard, it turns out to be a trick. And the reason they want to...
No.
Yeah, it is, believe it or not. So the wizard is evil, and the headmistress at the school is evil. Everybody in charge that you thought was good is evil, and they're evil because they're trying to persecute all the talking animals. And they're doing this as the justification that they explain is that there was some kind of disarray in Oz, and they needed to solve that problem. And so they needed to give everybody someone to hate.
So they create a common enemy so that people can rally against it, essentially.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting philosophical point. But I mean, it's not expounded much upon. I mean, it might do it in the second one, but the point was interesting.
The point was interesting, and at least like it does do. It's a twist that happens too fast, but like
that too.
They start with like, okay, we're giving you someone to hate, which is we decided is the talking animals. But then when Alphabet figures that out, she's like, well, that's terrible. I'm not gonna go along with that. So I'm gonna disagree. I'm not gonna help you with this, and I'm gonna steal your what was it? Grimoire. Just call it a grimoire.
No, it's not a grimoire.
They did that a lot in this movie, though. They had like funky
Glenda
names
has
for
very specific pronunciations that are stupid.
They're just not. Well, I didn't mind it so much from her because that was just her being her. I thought it was like a character thing where she's like, "Oh, I just don't pronounce everything correctly," and then it's like a character flaw or whatever, or like something endearing about them. But then it was like part of the world. And like, what was the name of the academy again? I don't want to say it wrong because if I say it wrong, I'll say something really rude.
Shiz.
Thank you.
University is the shiz. I hate that I said that. I apologize. You should not have been subjected to that garbage.
Well, I wasn't going to say it. What if I said it wrong? And in my head, I was like, wait a minute. I don't remember which one it was.
Yeah.
Just don't.
Is it the bad one or the... I don't know. One of them. It's still dumb, but
whatever.
Sorry, theater fans. It's dumb.
So they had dumb names for things. Anyways, so Alphabet says, no, I'm not helping you. And she grabs their grimoire and she runs off.
Grimoire.
And they're... whatever. And then and then they decide that like, all right, well then we're going to make her the villain. And so at that point I was like, seems like it's real easy to make a villain.
Yeah.
Like, wow.
The minute he calls someone out, they're bad.
At that point, you're a magician. Why don't you just make like some spectral in the night? It's this evil ghost of somebody. And you fake the whole thing.
Yeah. Instead you pick an actual group of characters from this world.
What?
Gonna get this whole race.
Just wipe them out. But then they switch too, and they're like, now it's the Wicked Witch. That's what she is. And the color of her skin is just a manifestation of all the evil within her.
True.
And I was like, whoa. Like, I mean, but I make mixed feelings is what I'm trying to explain. Like, a part of it's interesting.
Yeah.
How they just so easily are like, I just have to demonize someone. Someone has to be the bad guy in this story. It's like, no one has to be the bad guy. You are just wanting someone to be the bad guy.
Alphabet's the bad guy.
And then the other side of it was just like, it was hard to feel invested because it just felt like it was just kind of thrown in, and then we spend 20 minutes of an escape sequence mixed in with songs,
because
and
it's
you're
a
like,
song.
dude, can we just
leave?
Just escape
Right.
and progress the plot, please, and the story. Like, unravel this. This is where it's starting to get interesting. We need more, and I hate to ending an episode on just like this left me wanting more and unsatisfied as a result.
Yeah, it was just I felt like the Monty Python and the Holy Grail. No, Father, I just want to sing. No, none of that. No, we don't need that here. That's what it felt like constantly. You hear the music start to swell, and you're like, oh, no. Just progress the story, please. Enough. But that's what we sympathize with in Oz the Great and Powerful. Sam Raimi put that in the movie. Every time someone, especially the Munchkins, they start to sing, and James Franco's like, no, it's all right. That's all right. We don't.
That's all right. You don't have to.
We worked really hard on this musical piece. Yeah, that's okay.
We'll do it later.
I agree with that sentiment, honestly. Well, do you have anything more of this film?
No, I mean, it was all right. It was okay.
It's a passable movie.
Yeah, I feel like I'll have I have to see the second one, and I hope that the second one can add some of that depth.
Yeah.
I don't care if it does it in a musical way or not. I just want the depth to be there. Because, like I've said before, Chicago is one of my favorite movies, and that's a musical, and it's music pretty much the whole time. But I love that movie, and that's because each song is so emblematic of each character, and it's self-aware enough to know that, most of these characters are pretty deplorable people, and they're just running their game in a system that's going to allow them to do that.
Sure.
And then you get, the one highlight of the character who's actually humble and decent, and he has, lo and behold, a humble and decent song to complement that. And this was it's not that it wasn't complimentary, it just wasn't, there was no depth at all.
Didn't seem to progress the plot, and it didn't seem like they had a lot of depth.
And then we got to repeat things because we didn't feel like we covered it enough. So it was
well, I mean, they're catchy songs, but yeah, I mean, aside from that. So, yeah, we'll see how the second one goes. We probably won't do an individual movie on that one or a video on that one.
We'll just talk about Oz,
but we do want to hit all the Oz films, and that'll probably be one video. So, aside from that, though, this has been part of the Oscar series, so we figured why not just do this one separately.
Yeah.
Maybe the second one will gain some awards. I don't know. It's an interesting. We'll have to talk about that later.
I guess it depends on what the year shapes up to be.
Right. I mean, there's that too.
This time it's definitely going to win costumes, but I'm not sure what else. Probably nothing else. But definitely costumes. It'll get that for sure. The costumes are just really, really creative.
Speaking of which, on the 1st, we're going to be doing our predictions for the Oscars. So we'll have all that in there. But we think this one will win or not win.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. Anyway, I think we can wrap it up there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, this has been our review of Wicked.
If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't.
Yeah. Would recommend. Not bad.